My name is Cheryl Erickson, and I'm the Indigenous focused ECE instructor with Louis Riel Vocational College. Today we're going to review Chapter 5 of Health, Safety, and Nutrition, and we're going to look at feeding toddlers, preschoolers, and school-age children. Before we get started, I'm just going to remind you that you do need to read Chapter 5 of your text. This video is not a replacement for your chapter readings. So in Chapter 4, we discussed infant feedings, and so today we're going to move on to toddlers, preschoolers, and school-agers, and discuss some of the feeding, some of the ways we should feed children, rather. So toddlers essentially are age 2. They've just transitioned from a infant program into a preschool program. So now they're in a group age range of 2 to 5. So when we look at toddlers, we have to still recognize that toddlers may still be being breastfed and having breast milk as a part of their daily supplement. In our environment, we're still going to need to offer that space for moms who might want to come in and breastfeed, and we're still going to have available place within the refrigerator to store that breast milk if a child is going to have breast milk supplement throughout the program. And the same practices are going to take place in terms of how we store, how it should be labeled. So all the things that we discussed in Chapter 4. Moving ahead and talking about the balanced diet of a toddler, we're looking at a wide variety of foods. Their palate is starting to be much more enhanced. We can start experimenting with more textures, colors, more flavorful food that will appeal to a toddler. As recommendation goes regarding what toddlers can eat at this point, it is recommended that portion size for a toddler should be at least 1 tablespoon from each of the 4 food groups for each child. Typical characteristics regarding a toddler's diet, we're looking at food textures and consistency. So again, toddlers have a lot more teeth in their mouth. Their ability to chew is well developed. Textures are going to be really important as well. But we still have to recognize that toddlers are very busy. They often rush through meals. Sometimes they put a little bit too much in their mouth. So we need to ensure that the foods we're presenting to them aren't posing choking hazards. So making good choices as far as the size of food, like the size for children to consume at one time should be about an inch, a quarter of an inch diameter. And that's a small piece that can easily be chewed and swallowed. And then offering things that could be mashed as well, so soft, easy to mash foods. Timing of meals, toddlers again are busy, they're very active, so tend to graze often. Instead of finishing a full meal, they'll often eat a lot in between. 3 meals plus snacks is very important because they're moving, they're growing, they're very busy, they're burning a lot of calories. So we want to replace those calories and give them good foods to help them maintain that energy level. The impacts of development. So at the toddler age around 2, you often see that they start to change in their growth. So growing will decrease a little bit from infancy. So within that first year, it's amazing. Your baby goes from 4 pounds to 26 to 30 pounds. And then in toddlerhood, it starts to slow down a little bit. They need to have the sameness. It's part of that egocentrism in their development. They want the same thing everybody else has, and they're changing their tastes. They're more independent, and so some fussy eating can start as well within that age range. So they become a little bit more selective. We find that that wide variety of foods that we could feed them, and they would easily take and eat from us changes, and it gets to be limited. They eat smaller portions, and it's a time, I believe, because they're so busy and they're so active, that their interest in food changes also. They get into that stage of not wanting to try new foods. Neophobia, the fear of new foods, impacts us as parents, because we worry that the child isn't getting the proper nutrition. And as ECEs, we worry because the children aren't eating enough at meal times. We worry that they're going to be hungry, and we worry that parents will become upset about that. Food jags tend to happen as well, so they get stuck on certain foods, and they'll only eat Cheerios, or they'll only eat bananas. They'll have a very selective amounts of foods, or selective categories per se, that they'll only want to eat for a period of time. My son, it was peanut butter sandwiches. That was the only thing he would eat, and he wanted that breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So how do we as ECEs help children to maintain those healthy eating habits? How do we role model that type of behavior? And so we want to really set the tone for meal times. We want to have consistent routines. We want to have practices that involve children helping out, independently serving, being excited about the meals that are presented in front of them. If they're excited about it and they're participating even in the preparing of it and the serving of it, they'll be more likely to eat it. So that could be physically setting the table, plating their own food. We can help them pour their own milk or water, things like that. It's making them a part of that process. We need to ensure that we are encouraging it. Partaking in the foods that they're eating is always really helpful, and making comments and how good it is, and did you try it? I like that you can comment on the different flavors, it's crunchy, things like that spark the interest of the children. I have found in my experience that children in group settings tend to eat things a little bit, will eat things different from home, because your snack menu is usually different from home, and in a group setting they will typically eat what their friend is eating, or their table mate is eating, because everybody's doing it. So that is a good thing in terms of daycare and promoting food. So we want to ensure that we're providing those opportunities for them to be independent, and offering them as many opportunities to be a part of snack preparation and serving to encourage those healthy eating habits. And practicing those hands-on experiences is a great opportunity for children to see the process of how food makes it from the kitchen through a baking, cooking activity, and actually to the table and sampling what they've created. So that's a really fun thing to do with toddlers as well. Something simple, not a very long process in your recipe. Understanding nutritional needs of preschool children. So now we're moving from the twos to young threes to older threes and fours. Sometimes fives are considered in that preschool category. You see some physical changes in the body there. They go from that look of a baby now to more of a little boy, little girl look. So you can start to see that transformation happening. We're wanting to, again, still maintain that balance of calories for that active lifestyle and weight management. Again, they are so active. Often I find that sometimes when children are eating lunch, if their parents are packing that lunch to send to daycare, they will typically pack what a child will eat at a meal at home. In the daycare center, children are twice as active, and they're twice as hungry. So often it's not enough to fulfill that hunger. And so we often will say to parents, do you think you could pack an extra little bit, because they were really hungry today, and they wanted some more to eat. And so just those communications with parents are really, really important, because you don't want a child to to be hungry, and your program should allow for extras in your center. So you don't want a child to leave a meal hungry. You should be supplementing something there just to tie them over as well. We look at the reduced foods, like how do we reduce things like salt, extra fats and sugars within that child's diet. So we're reading more labels. Daycare center, we're looking at lists of ingredients. When we're buying foods, we're looking at recipes of healthy foods. We can control sugar by substituting honey, more natural types of things. So really taking that into consideration, because again, we want to ensure that we're serving children those really healthy snacks that have good nutrition, are good for them. We want to, again, look at the variety of colors that are present in a meal. And so things that are rich in color, like the red tomatoes and the red apples and the green broccolis, add a lot to the presentation of that meal. And if something looks good, we generally want to try it, and how we're presenting that food to the children as well. So if it's vegetables, is there if it's, I guess, raw vegetables, is there a nice dip to go with that? So adding something that's going to enhance the flavor as well is really important, and children will typically enjoy that. So when we look at the characteristics of the preschool diet, some things that we need to consider are, again, food textures and consistencies, special attention still to those choking hazards. So in chapter 4, when we talked about presenting things to children, such as a hot dog, which is not a highly recommended food for children, so it's just an example. And I say that because it is processed and it is a high sodium. But cutting it lengthwise and also into smaller pieces as well, so that it does not pose a choking hazard. Supervision at meal times is really important. And so developing what your table rules are going to be around food, where simple things like please chew your food and swallow and then tell me your story helps you to easily understand what the child is saying, but then it limits the choking. Also things like you need to sit and eat. We don't want children getting up and moving around the room while they have a mouthful of food. And also just taking your time. Take smaller bites, maybe limit if they're eating grapes, which should be cut in pieces as well, that they're only putting one piece in their mouth at a time. So we want to really make sure we have some good safety practices at the meal table to prevent those choking. Or those chances for a child to choke. We need to look at how we schedule meals and snacks again. So looking at that 3 meals per day, breakfast, lunch, and afternoon snack, and there should be about 2 to 3 hour intervals in between, and really encouraging children to drink some water in between too. Children need to be kept hydrated. They are moving around. Sometimes they get too busy. Children in daycare often don't want to stop what they're doing and leave their toy to move to get a drink of water, because they could potentially lose what they're playing with. So really, offer them lots of water to drink to keep them hydrated. Avoid portion distortions. So, when I'm saying that, look at the sizes of plates and bowls and things like that you're using. Incorporate as much natural things like home in the dishes that you're serving, so that it doesn't look like on a small little plate that it's 3 times or 4 times more vegetables than it is. So children automatically look at the size of the plate and food and think that it's twice as large as it is, and it's not always the case. So we want to really make sure that they're not thinking it's more than it is, if that makes sense. So what is our role in preschool's positive mealtime experience? So we want to make sure that, again, that, that environment is comfortable, it's a specific routine. I like to see children sitting at the same spot at the table. I look at things like the younger children sitting beside me, older children in front, and I say younger children beside me in case they need a little bit extra support and they're closer proximity. I can help them out a little bit more. If I have a child with a special allergy or a food allergy, I want to sit them right across from me so I can monitor how they look for any changes, swelling, rashes, and things like that. That's very important practice. How they're breathing and things like that, especially if it's an anaphylactic type of allergy. Encourage a lot of conversation. I look at meal times with children like a family meal, where we're going to discuss what's happened in the day. We're going to discuss things that's happening at home, what's new, things that you did the night before. So you're really finding out about the child and their culture, and they're learning things about you as well. So some really nice dialogue. We learn about each other at that mealtime. And also supporting children's initial cues for hunger and fullness. So we have to really teach children to chew their food really well before swallowing. The more textures involved in a meal is really good. So lots of chewing gives that brain processing time to get the message that the tummy is full. Sometimes I believe that takes up to 15-20 minutes. So conversation, foods that allow for a lot of chewing, like apples, cauliflower, the more crunchier foods, cucumbers, are really good for that to happen, and to respect that if a child is saying that their tummy is full, that we say, okay, are you sure your tummy is full? And I don't want you to leave the table hungry. So we want to follow their cues in that. It's important that they understand what that feeling is as well. Teaching preschoolers about nutrition is a huge component to early childhood education. We want to talk to them about the food choices, the meals that we're preparing with them, for them, and why they're healthier. And how can we go about doing this? Some really good hands-on tools are great. Learning about where milk comes from, how cheese is made. That can be gained through a field trip to the zoo. And seeing a milk processing plant. So those are really great opportunities for the children. Learning how to plant and harvest and eat the foods or vegetables or fruits that you've planted in your own garden is a great hands-on opportunity for the children to partake in. Simple cooking activities can be planned, which teach children about ingredients, about measuring, what's liquid, solids, things like that. The whole process from adding an egg to flour to water to vanilla, and then what happens in the end. We eat the pancakes that we're making. So it's another example as well. Food and nutrition activities are really good. So dramatic play, where you can offer those resources, mixing bowls and measuring cups and having water. You can even put flour, just some simple ingredients for children to play with in the dramatic play is really beneficial for them. And counting, literacy are all a part of how recipes work. So it's a good teaching tool for children to learn simple math as well. Understanding nutritional needs of school-age children. School-age children are far more independent, and you can tackle some more concepts with them. And they're so much more independent that simple cooking activities can be independently done on their own. So we do look at, as far as feeding school-age children, that again, your nutrients, the calorie intake per day, the food portion sizes increase because the child size increases. Again, we need to look at the food choices that we're making to ensure that they're wholesome, healthy, and hearty. But we also realize that it's an age where food choices are often influenced by peer groups and media advertising. So children often want things that they see their friends eating and things that they see on TV and TV commercials. That aren't always the most healthier choices. And so we struggle with that as parents. They're also independently purchasing things now on their own, maybe at a school cafeteria or a hockey rink, the places that they may go because they've earned some of their own money. So we are starting to lose a little bit of control in terms of what our children are eating. So we have things that are happening in terms of hampering growth rates and why that is caused. And so some of the reasons why growth rates change as children get older and move into that school age range is decreased physical activity. So children are a little bit more sedate, and that can be linked to screen time. TV, computers, video games, cell phones make children a little bit more sedate than they have been in years past when they're out playing street hockey or riding their bike in the evenings. And it's also because of my comment earlier where I say that we're kind of losing control and they've got opportunities to purchase foods that aren't the healthiest choices or influenced by their peers. Characteristics again, looking at school age this time, so characteristics of their diet. We look at, again, the timing of those meal patterns, and still again, they need to have those 3 meals per day and 3 snacks, so snacks in between. And we have to consider, now that we're a school age program, that the serving sizes are going to be larger. So when you look at your infant budget for food, your preschool budget for food, and now your school age budget for food, it'll increase because the portion sizes are now increasing as the children are growing. We look at that mid-morning snack too is advised because it needs to tie them over to lunch. So if you're eating at 8, we want to incorporate a snack around 10 and then lunch around 11. So it's almost looking at that recess snack that helps the child refocus. They take a break from what they're doing, have something to eat, the belly's full, they get a little bit of an energy release activity, and then it regulates their body, they're able to concentrate a little bit more. Importance of breakfast. Why is breakfast important? The most important meal of the day. It starts your metabolism is part of it. Increases math reading scores according to studies, improves chances of daily nutrition requirements, helps you memory-wise. If you're hungry, sometimes you're foggy cognitively, you're just not there. Having something to eat usually helps getting that blood sugar going, regulated, and it improves your behavior and your alertness, so your ability to pay attention. And again, a big thing, a promotion for or promoting good health in the school age sector is a national lunch program, which isn't something that you see in Canada. It's more of an American program. However, we do have programs here in the city that do supplement lunch. And again, we do have a lot of opportunities in school and daycare where we can provide children a hot lunch for free or for a minimal amount of money. So as a teacher or an ECE, what is our role in creating a quality nutritional environment? What would that look like? So what we want to do is look at our menu, and when we're planning menus, really look at all 4 food groups and supplement accordingly, a good variety. When you're looking at even providing fruits and vegetables, some vegetables should be cooked, some vegetables should be presented to the children raw. So you need to have, have that wide variety, just like you would with the preschool and school age. Lots of color. Make it look pleasing. Make it appealing looking to the children so they want to try that. And also our program is going to incorporate opportunities for children to be physically active. So we want to play organized sports or games or outdoor time where they can run around and burn off some energy and calories. We want to avoid rewarding children with food, because typically when you reward children with food, you're rewarding them with sugary things like Smarties or candy of some sort. So that's not always the best choice. A good reward could be more free time or extra computer time, things like that that are more better for their health. Children with special needs, we need to look at their health and the types of foods that we're providing them, what they might need as far as supports in their nutrition. So we should be really communicating with their parents in terms of what their menu plan should look like, how many times per day should foods be presented to them. Maybe it's more, maybe their feedings are a little bit different, maybe we're tube feeding and supplementing. So when I say how that works with children with special needs, that would probably be more of an individualized plan, and we do want to incorporate their snacks in with all the other children's snacks as well. So they're eating, relatively at the same time and being a part of that group. And so as far as children from culturally diverse backgrounds, we need to really communicate what our menus are, what our health and nutrition program is to families. And we need to do that in the best forms of communication. And sometimes that might even mean having it translated into their home language so that they are better able to understand. Most people want to follow those policies and procedures, but communication could be the issue, and that may be why they're not. So communicate that in the home language, and if you can find out more about what that culture is and how can you bring some of those cultural foods into your menu. We want to try a good variety of foods for the children to, again, enhance that palate. Our role is going to be big in communicating with families, sharing all that information, articles, sharing recipes with families that are really popular within the daycare centers, and asking families to share recipes that are really popular at home that their child enjoys and might want to share with their friends. Advocating for breakfast and lunch programs, hot lunches and things like that are wonderful opportunities for the children to partake. And it's something they get excited about too. It's different. If you had to eat sandwiches every day, sandwiches gets to be really boring. So pizza lunch days or Subway days can be really exciting for children. And you can incorporate if you have a pizza lunch, you can incorporate fruits and vegetables in with that, as well as milk. So, offering still all 4 food groups with a serving of fruit and vegetables. And school-age kids, again, their understanding is going to be far greater. So you can experiment with a lot more in terms of cooking. They have abilities to read now and write now. And so as far as recipe goes, you can always have a cooking activity where the children can find their own ingredients in the cupboards, find their own recipes, and actually cook with limited assistance with you. Your presence will still need to be there, but they can actually put into practice hands-on that finding a recipe, mixing and measuring, baking it, and then partaking in it afterwards. So it's a really good opportunity for them to learn a lot about nutrition and foods. There is a website that teaches children basic nutrition concepts. It can teach them about their BMI, where they are in that age rate or in that range for their height and weight. So that is called My Plate. It's pretty user friendly. You could show children that if they're interested in finding out more about that. And again, school-age children, it's a great opportunity for them to learn about sustainability and how food is planted and grown. And gardens are very popular in school programs throughout the world. And it's a really hands-on opportunity for them to see that process and at the end enjoy the fruits of their labor. So that concludes our Chapter 5 of Health, Safety, and Nutrition. I do encourage you to check in with your instructor if you have any questions regarding Chapter 5 content. Also, check in to ensure that you haven't missed any handouts pertaining to this chapter or assignments.